This is your captain speaking. We are making our descent into Las Vegas McCarran Airport. On behalf of our crew, we'd like to thank you for flying MMAjunkie Airlines. Now please fasten your seatbelts and put your tray tables in your upright position because the descent is going to be a little bit bumpy.
Alright, Junkie Nation, it's time to roll, baby, on MMAjunkie Radio with Gorgeous George and Gold. This is what we do and why we do it, baby. All night long, we rollin'! Yes!
The MMAjunkie Radio revolution is upon us.
Can you dig it?
There's no escape. No escape. Through the vast frontier of cyberspace and through a sea of stars in outer space.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We've solidified our combat communication stranglehold.
We are controlling transmission.
With the use of MMAjunkie Radio and SiriusXM satellite radio technology. MMAjunkie Radio. Commence transmission. Live from MMAjunkie Radio HQ in the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Here are your hosts, Gorgeous George and Go.
From the fight capital of the world, inside the beautiful Mandalay Bay Race and Sportsbook, you are listening to the MMAjunkie Radio Show, the only show that matters. I'm your host, Gorgeous George. With me, as always, is the devious and dastardly Goes, our ace co-host. To my left, fight analyst Dan Tom, back east, producing, as always, Danny Otto. What's up, guys?
Yesterday, we were trying to figure out, we knew that we would all have mic rust, but we wanted to figure out if you would remember the intro, because I couldn't remember the pre-show intro. But you switched it up on us, and you did something else, but today you did it, and you did it right.
I figured I'd just stumble out of the gate and start talking because I knew I probably would have butchered it.
Think so? Well, what's the difference between yesterday and today? I think you would have hit it.
I guess you're right. There is no difference. I have no answer. I think when I go to California, I think in another mode. Like, I haven't thought of MMA as much. We also picked weeks where there wasn't much going on. So
did you notice a lot of the MMA world was on vacation?
Watching, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Just on Junkies alone. A lot of people were on vacation. Us three, and then, of course, Simon, who's back today.
Kevin Ioli.
Matt still is on vacation. Is Ioli on vacation?
Well, I think he comes back today. I want to say Brett was on vacation too, Akamoto.
John could use a vacation, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a rough run. All right, but it's Tuesday, August 21st, back at it. And we have, since there isn't noise, I think the heavy lifting's done. We will have 3 guests today. We'll talk to Gray Maynard in the first hour. The former UFC title contender at 155 pounds will be fighting. He's returning back to 155 pounds. His last couple had been at 45. That fight's coming up, so we'll talk to him about that. And then we also have Dave LaGreca from Busted Open. We're actually going to finish the show with Dave LaGreca. He's the host of Busted Open, along with Mark Henry and Bully Ray. They talk pro wrestling over there, and I think there's becoming more of a crossover, you know, where we're talking a little bit more because of Ronda Rousey headed that way, and Shayna Baszler, and the other women that participated in MMA, competed in MMA for a few years. They call themselves the 4 Horsewomen. Kind of still gets on my tits a little, but whatever. That's them, and maybe it'll work out for them over there. You know, they control the outcomes. But in MMA, I thought it was a crash and burn. And then Brock now coming back this way. You know, at some point, I guess in the next 5 months now. So, yeah, we'll talk to Dave LaGreca and Chris Lytle. He's doing some bare knuckle stuff. He's retired from mixed martial arts, but he's doing the bare knuckle brawling, bare knuckle fighting, and we'll talk to him a little bit. You know, he was always proud of his boxing skills, so that's probably right down his alley.
He's got one of the best laughs in MMA. Remember one time we did a show from Mandalay Bay, but in the hotel room, and we had him in there, and he wouldn't stop laughing, and it made us laugh. Me and Trig, we just couldn't. We were just all laughing for no reason.
I wish I could remember that.
Oh man, we had Frank Mir on that show. It was fun.
Really?
Yeah.
What was he laughing about?
Just stupid questions that we would ask him, but then he'd start laughing, but his laugh would make us laugh, and then we'd all just start laughing.
Okay. Well, see if you can get him to laugh today, or see if you can get him to remember that incident.
Okay.
Have you brought it up to him since?
Nah.
We're pushing 10 years on something like that, right?
Yeah, because we weren't even here yet in the studio.
Right. So past 10 years, because we're on our nine and a half year. I don't know.
9.5.
How would you say?
Crazy.
You're 9.5 year.
9.5.
We're on, I think you just think we're on 9.5 years. You can't do anything in 9.5 other than call it 9.5 years. But because you would say 9th year, but yeah.
Chris Lytle's one of those guys that kind of tie in with a lot of things, though. I mean, you know, you guys mentioned your interviews, which I've heard on this show through him. Someone was mentioning, you mentioned the other day, George, we're talking about pay-per-views, and you threw in the Shane Carwin versus Brock Lesnar, and wasn't that one of those really stacked cards where I think they had Matt Brown versus Chris Lytle, and that was one of the first cards.
Wow, that's an awesome memory.
That was also one of the first cards that I remember, because one of the first cards I called in. I think I called in and I broke down the main card as Christopher Walken on the show. And I don't know if I told you guys at the time. I told you guys later. I fessed up to it. But, yeah, and then, you know, like I said, this weekend was doing the top 5 welterweight wars, so I felt like I went through, like, almost all of Chris Lytle's career, because he has, all through his career from beginning to end, like, really, you know, you forget about, you know, Chris Lytle versus Thiago Alves and these early on fights, but
we were at that one.
Really?
Yeah, that was, that's the one that I've always said the loudest strikes I've ever heard in a fight. We're in that fight, and
Which
we were
one?
way up.
UFC 47 or something?
It was in no, it was in the 8. It was New Jersey, and it was when Lytle and Alves were throwing leg kicks back and forth. You remember the buds and the smacks, and we were just like, Jesus Christ, how are they still doing this? I think they had to stop that one, right? Like
yeah, the doctor stopped
the
it.
third
round?
Yeah.
So here we go. Here's the card: Lesnar, Carwin.
Okay.
Lieben and Akiyama.
Oh,
what I remember about that, it was Lieben. Hadn't he just fought 2 weeks before?
Yeah.
It was either that or he was fighting next after that. But yeah.
Yeah, he had a
did
great
turnaround.
Great run. Then you had Lytle and Brown, as was mentioned by Dan Tom, Stefan Bonner and Christoph Silzinski. I think they finished up 1-1, right? I think they had two fights. George Sacharopoulos and Kurt Pellegrino. Brendan Schaub versus Chris Tuchscherer.
Kurt Pellegrino, by the way, underrated lightweight. Put on some scraps. That guy would scrap with a hole in his face.
Batman. He's tough.
Yeah.
But he's the one that got triangled by Nate Diaz. Flipping the birds, right? Throwing
you
the
see
birds.
Fight Night 13, Denver, Colorado.
Ricardo Romero versus Seth Petrozelli. Wow, I can click on any of these guys and a whole bunch of things come. Yep. Didn't Romero get, absolutely destroyed by Kyle Kingsbury here at Mandalay Bay?
Yeah.
I'll click him in just a second.
Yeah.
Brock is doing pro wrestling, obviously. Stefan Bonner's doing pro wrestling. Brendan Schaub is the podcast guy now.
Wow.
A lot of these guys are just doing
Showtime
different stuff. Chris Lytle's doing bare knuckle boxing.
Grove.
Akiyama's in his underwear again.
Kendall Grove and Goran Relic. Gerald Harris versus David Branch.
Oh,
wow, ESPN. Remember that?
That was a slam, yeah. Wow. Daniel Roberts versus Forrest Petz. And John Madsen versus Carlos Vamola.
Ninja Roberts.
So let me tell you something real fast. When Gerald Harris went on that run, and I'll bring it up for you guys, we interviewed Mo and DC. They had this group called Team Thirsty. And it wasn't really, none of them trained together. I think Mo went to AKA for a while, but they had already created Team Thirsty by then. So Mo had trained for a while with DC, but Rashad was part of it, and they were just Team Thirsty.
Yeah.
Goes and I, we had a distant chapter. We called ourselves Team Hungry at the time.
I can't remember.
So, but he went on this roll, and here it is right here.
He fucked us up. He goes more like Team Starving.
It was John Salter, Mario Miranda, David Branch. This is when he had come back to the UFC.
Yeah.
Oh, so wait. So when he was on the reality show, he never got a shot? Gerald Harris?
Didn't you lose to Amir? I thought he lost to Amir Sadallah.
Right, but I guess he never got a shot. Or either that or this was the shot, I guess, coming off these years here. But I remember those guys, DC, Rashad, all those guys saying, man, right now the guy in our group is Gerald Harris. He had gotten 2 bonuses. He had been on ESPN 2 times.
Yep.
And he was the man, you know. And he was a little harder to get to do an interview. I remember for the David Branch interview, we had to pin him down, but he was, I think, training at Vanderlei's, and he just had this hoodie on, and he was intense. You know how he's always cracking jokes now. But he went through a role where he was the guy. So Cormier hadn't become what he became. Rashad was just coming off the title loss to Forrest. King Mo, I think, may have still been in Japan. Who knows? But or Strikeforce.
By the way, that slam on Branch, everyone remembers the slam, of course, but go back and look at like top 5 Joe Silva reaction moments cage side. Like, you don't hear him go, no, 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 like before it happens. Like, he puts his hands up because he's seen enough fights to know what was going to happen next, and sure enough.
Is there like a video or something of Joe Silva reactions?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there is.
They're really good, dude.
Ricardo Romero, so I brought his name up, and here it is. He fought Seth Petrozelli that night. I didn't even know because I think when he fought Kyle Kingsbury, this is the first I thought I saw him. He lost in 21 seconds. But if for some reason that's up on YouTube, check it out. It'll only take 21 seconds of your life.
Yeah, right.
Plus the commercial, which is 15, so still less than a minute. And Kyle Kingsbury, that's probably the best I had ever seen that dude. I mean, he just crushed him. Rearranged his face, man. And with Kingsbury being 6'4", I thought, wow, we might have a player here at light heavyweight. I remember saying that. We even had him on the show, and the dipshit was up here at Mandalay Bay while we're interviewing him. We're like, where you at? You know? And he goes, I'm still at Mandalay. Oh, man, why didn't you just come downstairs? But we had a good laugh, and now he's all into fitness, and he's married to Natasha Wicks, the former Octagon girl.
Yeah.
Now she's Natasha Kingsbury. So it seems like they're doing well. And then I brought up Bonner's name, and I just wanted to clean something up here.
One of your funniest reactions ever to a fighter where I thought maybe you could have gotten stolen?
It was Szynski. They split. Okay, go ahead.
One time he had booked Jay Huron and Tyron Woodley, but he left like a buffer. They were both at Mandalay Bay, and one of them showed up late. And I remember, I think it was Jay, right, when he came in. He was like, oh, man, why'd you do that?
No.
Or he told you, really? You got to book me or something like that?
No.
Who was it?
So it was. He's got the names right. And let me see if I can put it. Let me see if I can put it. I think it was like Woodley, like was 9:30, and I figured we'd get him out of here by 10:45. And I think Huron was 10 to 10:20 or something. So there was like a 15-minute buffer, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe even more, dude. So Huron's in here, and Woodley was late in terms of he communicated, but he's like, hey, man, can't make it now. Doing this. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then come at this. So since I knew Huron was going to be 10 to 10:15, maybe 10:20, I go come at 10:30. So not only was Tyron late, which, okay, it happens, but I told him come at 10:30 just to avoid that. He comes at like 10:10, right in the middle of Huron, you know? So as he's walking up, I even kind of had to rush Jay off, like, you know, hey, I know it's fight week. You're busy. You need to get out of here, you know. And it played it off, no problem. And so yeah, he's leaving, and they pass each other right about there where we scare people.
Right there, yeah.
Right there, they, you know, and yeah, of course I'm like, oh, we're cringing. But Woodley comes in and goes, really? Y'all have to book us that close together, or book us back to back?
But do you remember what you told him?
I think I said fool, right?
Yeah, he said, fool, you were late.
I go, fool, you were late. And then the second time I submitted to you, which you were cool with, you're now early. So if anything, I'm aware of that, and I was trying to avoid it in both circumstances. But the reason it wasn't avoided is because A, if I may, A, you postponed, and B, you came in early to the second one, which again would have avoided it. But that almost reminds me of the former UFC gal that I used to butt heads with. That's how out of the realm of reality she was with the arguments we'd have, where I was like, what? Like, how am I getting yelled at here?
If anything, I think Jay would be the one that would be upset because he's the one that should feel ambushed and rushed off. But
well, they're cool with him. I don't think he ever
by each other. They just kind of looked at each other like surprised, and then they just kind of went like that and just walked past each other.
Yeah.
Jay, but his reaction to
"Oh,
you were late" was so funny.
The
dude.
Spider-Man meme.
What did he do? Because I guess
kind of went like it just took him by surprise that he would say that to him. funny.
I'd
man.
love to talk to him about that again. But yeah, that's exactly how that went down. Did you say 10:15 for somebody?
Yeah, we should probably take a break right now, actually.
All right, let's sneak in a quick break. You're listening to MMA Junkie Radio on the new Fight Nation Channel 93. Stay close. We'll be right back with Gray Maynard, UFC lightweight.
Their fighting style is described as fluffy, but their radio style is on point. Here are George Goes and Dan.
All right. I forgot to open the reads. So, here we go. The NBA Radio is your headquarters for all things basketball this summer. From free agency signings to trade rumors and social media gossip, whether it's happening on or off the court this offseason, we're discussing it on NBA Radio, Series 207, XM86, and streaming on your phone, or at home on Sirius connected devices and speakers. All right, we'll be joined by Gray Maynard in just a couple of minutes here. Let's get Brandon from Louisville in. And remember, you can call into the show at any point. It's 866-522-2846. I also mentioned in the YouTube chat that I'll be looking for comments and questions if you're shy or kind of a puss and don't want to call in. I understand. All right, what's up, Brandon? How you doing?
Gentlemen, we're only 43 days away from the 2018 Junkie Gathering. In Goldfish, George, before y'all went on vacation, you said you'd have some announcements for us pertaining to the gathering. I'm going to hold you to that, my friend.
I do, yeah. My first announcement is that tomorrow you will get 3 announcements, I promise.
Okay. I'm excited. I'm happy to see you all. I'm waiting.
That's it? I thought you would have laid into me way more than that.
Back on that one.
He just goes, okay, yeah, cool.
Look, I'm at the point where if I get a almost commitment to hearing something tomorrow, that's good enough.
Okay, all right.
Don't lie to me, though. Do not lie to me. I know people in Vegas.
All right, I promise.
All right, boys. That's it. I know y'all got Gray coming up. I just wanted to say I'm looking forward to it. It's
Hey,
been a slow news
who do you
week.
like
There's
this
nothing
weekend?
different.
Gagey or Vic? Wow. Okay. Excuse you.
I'm going to be rooting for Gaethje. I think Vic wins, though.
You're gonna be rooting for Gagey, but you think Vic wins. What is all that?
Yep.
Yeah, what are you, a B?
I like Gaethje. I like his style. I like to see the kid fight.
No,
I
it's
want
not
him to
that. It's
win
the
it
flatulence.
You don't hear that?
Yeah.
Danny, you goofing or what?
I'm gonna be honest. This is what happens on his phone, and normally I'm not doing other stuff in the background. So normally I bring it up and down every single time he talks.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I was trying to call the.
What do you
the
have,
guest.
Brandon? Like cricket or something like that? Or?
You on that gas plan or what?
I got some shitty earbuds I need to replace. That's what it is. I'm sorry, guys. I will work on it. Before I call next time, I will have better
All right,
earbuds.
but you're on the hook there. You think you want Gagey to win, but you think Vic will. Man, that's one of the toughest fights I've had to pick all year.
Yeah.
Gagey and Vic. I just think it's going to be
is.
really a close fight.
It is.
So many things can happen with those guys, and I'm really looking forward to it. I may not parlay it or get into it at all. Just enjoy it. Hopefully all my parlays are done before we even get to that fight. I just want to enjoy that one.
Yeah, smart move.
All right, Brandon. Thanks for the call, buddy.
I put fart
he's
noise
gone.
for his caller notes, by the way.
Yeah. Next now. Or when?
No.
Keep going.
Well, because I think we kept screwing up the names.
Okay. Is he ready to go?
I think Danny's
not
calling
yet.
him.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it looks like Gray Maynard won't be next. It'll be Chris Lytle. Danny's connecting us to Chris Lytle, former MMA fighter. He was on the reality show, and he had a career before that, after it, and now that he's been retired for a few years, he's been dabbling with bare knuckle brawling, bare knuckle fighting, excuse me, and I think he's going to be damn good. Like if these are just like 1 or 2 fights or whatever, okay, no problem. But if he wants to hang in there and see what their title scheme is and go for that, I think he can do good. He joins us now on the hotline. What's up, Chris? How you doing?
What's happening, people?
Not much. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George, Goes, and Dan. Hey, Chris, straighten something out for me here. Goes was telling me about we had you on our show in a hotel room. We hadn't even gotten our studio at Mandalay Bay yet. And you were upstairs, and you had some sort of a laugh attack. And apparently Goes and Frank Trigger was our co-host then, and maybe myself. We all just sat there and laughed minute after minute. We couldn't stop laughing. Do you remember that?
Good old days.
Okay,
kinda like this.
I think I remember the laugh now. Goes was saying that we were laughing at your laugh, and you were making us laugh by just laughing. So it was kind of confusing to
It
me.
was us all laughing for like 5 minutes.
Glad to entertain you guys. Jeez, making fun of me. I love it.
No, it wasn't like that.
Laughing with me.
Chris.
That's good stuff, man.
Are you just gonna do a few of these bare knuckle fights, or are you gonna see what kind of a title scheme they have and compete for some sort of a belt? What's I guess how long of a career you gonna have with these guys?
It's hard for me to tell at this point. I mean, I just wanted to get involved. It looked like being a combative athlete, and when I saw this, I was like, man, I got to do this. Something I think it makes. What I did, the way I fought, I think it's tailor-made for me, and I love the idea of it. And there's something about the idea of, I don't know, man, like a couple things. It's like a new sport, but yeah, it's really an old sport at the same time. And there's something about me, I don't know what it is. I like to come into a sport when it's brand new and it doesn't pay much, and then I try and make it to where it gets to where it's really effective, and then I retire. So maybe I'll do that again, and get out before a lot of money is made. I don't want that money stuff. So, I don't know. Seems like what I like to do. So, but I don't know. We'll just see. You never. I mean, I'm 40. I just turned 44, brother. So you never know. I mean, every fight could be your last. I don't know how my body's gonna react to everything. I mean, I know the training's an absolute, it kills me. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll just have to see. I got to find ways to tweak a few things and maybe make it a little bit easier on my body and everything. But if I could do that, I mean, I love being in the gym. I love training hard. It's a lot of fun right now.
What did your family think of your return to combat sports?
Well, let me tell you, it wasn't a real positive conversation we had there. It wasn't like, yes, finally we've been waiting for you to do that, Chris. It's kind of like, I thought you were done with this. So I had to take a lot of convention as far as how to go into the science of it. Look, it's so much safer. It's not as dangerous as boxing. It's not as dangerous as MMA. Go over and explain why not as many times is my brain going to run into my skull because, if that happens here, you're going to get cut open. And it's not like boxing or MMA. So I think, it might be more dangerous superficial as far as cuts to the face or whatever, but, you're not going to get brain damage from doing this sport. And that's what I'm more concerned about is, if I come out of this with a scar or two, that's fine. But if I come out of it and you can't put me on those interviews anymore because I, can't have a cohesive thought, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain to the listeners that may not understand what you just said, though, that you're not gonna about the brain injuries because obviously you do have some boxing skills and you are a great mixed martial artist, but I imagine at some point you are going to get hit in the head. So how would you answer that or defend that?
Well, here's the thing, I had 15 professional boxing matches, and I would probably say I probably have more damage in my brain in those 15 matches than in my probably 70-something MMA fights. And the reason is, that's what you do in boxing. You stand there and you trade punches. And I was an aggressive fighter, so each round we're probably landing, 20 punches to the head each time. I know you have these bigger gloves, but that dissemination disperses the punches. But, I mean, still, if you're getting hit hard, that brain is hitting the skull, and that's, that's going to happen a lot. So if you find an 8-round fight, 20 times 8, my math isn't real good. It's, 150, 160 times. That you don't take that damage when you're doing bare knuckle because you're not getting hit in the head, hard 100 times. Mm-hmm. If you can get hit in the head 100 times with bare knuckles and your face isn't just torn up, you got some really tough leathery skin. I don't see that happening. So you're not going to take the damage. But it's not only just the fight. It's the training. When I train, more you're going to take more damage usually in training just because if you fight an 8-round fight, you're probably doing 80 rounds of sparring or 100. I don't know. So that's where you're going to take a lot of damage. Even my bare-knuckle boxing training has been way different. My goal is to not get hit. I mean, I'm hoping you're going to see a much slicker, better Chris Lytle out there where I'm going to be able to move and hit and not get hit. Kind of different from my boxing and my MMA career because it has to be. If you sit there and try and trade with another person, you're going to lose a lot of fights, and that's not my goal. If I'm going to come out here and do this, I want to win. So I'm trying to be, actually use the sweet science of fighting where I try and hit and not get hit.
Former MMA fighter Chris Lytle and current bare knuckle fighter Chris Lytle, and still a fireman as well, firefighter, right, Chris?
Yeah.
All right, so that's Chris Lytle joining us here on the program. I see. All right. And, of course, we're talking about bare knuckle fighting. It goes down on Saturday, 5 p.m. on the Pacific time zone, 8 p.m. on the Eastern time zone. Check it out on Fight TV. You can purchase the pay-per-view for $29.99. The first edition went off great. People were loving it. I loved it. So check it out, folks. I think you'll enjoy it. You'll also see other MMA fighters that have they're either still participating in MMA or they have in the past, like Maurice Jackson, Joey Beltran, Beck Rawlings, who headlines the card. Chris is going to be fighting on the card versus Drew Lipton. All right, goes. What do you have for Chris Lytle?
Chris, so along the lines of what you were talking about, coming into a new sport and helping it develop, I remember watching Marco Huas chop Paul Varlins down with leg kicks. And it was kind of like this light bulb went off on everyone. Like, what? You can win a fight that way? When it comes to bare-knuckle boxing, do you think they've figured most of that out yet? Like the strategies, that type of stuff? Like, in other words, maybe like attacking the body, is that a waste of time in this type of sport? Because I know you do that a lot in boxing and you did it in mixed martial arts. How do you evaluate watching that first card and just seeing the strategies that are playing out?
Well, I think, 100% hasn't been, developed yet, but it's not going to be like the UFC early ones where it's going to take, UFC 12 before they figure it out. It's going to adapt very quick. And I think, a lot of this stuff has already been figured out, but a lot of these guys have had zero medical boxing experience, so no matter what you do in training, it's a little different when you get out there and fight. So I think after people have a few fights, it will adapt pretty quick, and people will see, oh, this is effective, this is not effective, this is not going to work, this is a waste of time. And I think it'll adapt much more quickly than the sport of mixed martial arts. But I would say for sure they're not right now where they will be in a year or two.
Chris, your nickname is Lights Out, and you have that nickname because you put people's lights out. You throw really, really hard. And I was curious, do you feel like because your hands aren't as protected as they were in boxing or in mixed martial arts, do you at all have to pull back on punches, or do you have to kind of pinpoint them a little bit more? Because obviously if you hit the top of the head or even the side of the head, sometimes it can be pretty hard. So I was curious, do you have to pull back a little bit on any of your punches?
Well, I think in a way you do, but I think it's more what you said secondarily, and it's not necessarily pulling back. It's being a little bit more precise and kind of judicial with when you're going to throw punches. You can't go out there and just wing punches. Go nuts and start winging them. I mean, like you said, you're going to hit the top of the head, you're going to break your hand. So that's kind of my biggest fear is hurting my hands. I've already talked to people about this. They said, "What's your game plan?" I said, well, "I'm going to go out there and throw some really hard punches and either knock the guy out or break my hand. Either way, the fight's probably over pretty quick." So I don't know. We'll see what happens. But you definitely have to take your time and be a little bit more precise with where you're trying to punch. I'm not trying to hit a guy on the top of the head. I'm trying to hit this guy in the face, head, or the body. I know you talked about body shots. Body shots are going to be very dangerous in this sport because it's very concentrated and very hard. There's not the rest of that glove to kind of spread out the punch. You're going to hit somebody right in the liver with a bare fist. That's going to hurt pretty bad. So, body shots are definitely going to be something I'm going to try and work in there if I can.
I mentioned your nickname, and I thought about this. That was your nickname for mixed martial arts. I think you need one for bare knuckle boxing. You have a great laugh. What if you become the bare knuckle chuckle?
Hey, good rhyming. I like it. Now, to be honest with you, though, the nickname actually didn't come from my mixed martial art career. It came from my boxing career when I was a professional boxer. So, my first pro boxing match ever, the guy who worked for Top Rank, he gave me that nickname. So it kind of stuck then, and it stuck throughout my mixed martial arts career, too. So, I don't know. Since it came from boxing, I feel like I should probably just stick with it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
All right.
I don't know. I got this about Sean Merriman. That Sean Merriman's trying to come in to that other organization, and he's trying to take the nickname Lights Out too. So I'm thinking, I know he's bigger than me, but we might have to have a fight for that name. I ain't giving it up to him. That ain't gonna work. Heavyweight or not, he's gonna have to knock me out to take my name. I don't like that.
On Saturday, Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship, a new era, is headed your way, folks. And it's an 8 p.m. Eastern start time, 5 p.m. on the Pacific time zone. You can purchase it for $29.99, and you'll get to see. Looks like they have about 10 matches here that I see on the fight card, including our guest, Chris Lytle.
I think they got about 15, actually.
Oh, wow.
I think they got about 15 fights, I believe. There's actually quite a few.
They're adding to it.
And the beauty of the thing I really liked about, this sport right now, it's brand new. It's really old, but it's brand new at the same time. But, you get the people out here fighting in it. It's not like at the UFC or the high-level boxing. And by that, I mean, you don't get a lot of guys in there who are just coming to try and outpoint you. Oh, there's a lot on the line right now. I got to try and out-jab this guy. If I can just hit him 3 times around, he hits me twice. There's none of that. These people come to knock each other out. This hasn't turned into a sport yet. This is a fight. And that's the beauty of it. That's what attracted me to this sport. That's what I liked about MMA and boxing. I would come in there and throw down and try and knock you out. If it goes a distance, so be it. But that's not my goal, and I don't like that to be the goal ever. And I think you get a lot of boring fights that way. I mean, think about this. When was the last time you saw like a title elimination fight, whoever wins just get a title shot. When is that ever a good fight? They're very rarely good. Usually they're boring because both guys are scared to death to lose that fight, and they're very conservative. So you don't have any of that in this sport right now. It's just two guys out there trying to punch each other as hard as they can. And that's what makes it entertaining. And that's what I think people are going to really enjoy when they watch this sport right now. They're going to go, man, these guys, they come to throw down. They come to hurt each other. You know, the essence of what the UFC used to be and boxing used to be, and this sport still is. You've lost that in some of the other realms. You haven't lost it here yet. So, you know, check it out for the next couple of years. I think it'll be a up-and-coming thing for that reason, if no other reason. People are going to come to hurt each other.
Charles Bennett's also on the card, formerly Crazy Horse, now known as Felony. Tony Lopez, a King of the Cage legend. He's also on the card. All right, our fight analyst, Dan Tom's got something for you. Dan, what do you have for Chris Lytle?
Hey, Chris, really enjoyed you explaining the bare-knuckle boxing. I think, you know, especially coming from someone like you to articulate it, I think really does it justice. But a lot of us are fans of you because of that, kind of what you just said, you know, that attitude, you know, preserving that fighting spirit. And we were just talking, Chris, about, you know, top, you know, welterweight fights here. And we were talking about your fight with Thiago Alves at UFC 78. Now, you know, obviously, you know, it shows up as a loss on the record because of the doctor's decision to stop it. But that was a great fight, and you did win fight of the night. But I just want to ask you specifically, one of the things I love about the fight is at the end of the fight when the doctor decides to call it, you're upset, not because you're hurt or bothered by the damage. You're upset because you wanted to get your bonus. You really wanted to deliver the fight. You were feeling the fight, and you wanted to do all that. And I remember Joe Silva, who, by the way, is a great barometer when I'm watching fights, like if I'm enjoying it. Joe Silva's always a great barometer, you know. Everybody knows the classic rule, if he goes in the cage, he's impressed. But not just if he goes in the cage, how fast he goes in the cage. And I saw Joe Silva, Chris, run right up to you and reassure you. It says here that you ended up getting the fight of the night bonus. Can you share, now that, you know, Joe's retired, you're retired, I got to imagine Joe was, you know, you were a fighter that he liked. Do you have any special moments, or maybe from that night or any other nights you could share, where there was a conversation or you know, a nice post-fight moment with Joe Silva?
Well, I mean, I don't know if any specific post-fight, but I mean, you know, in negotiations lots of time, they would have Joe call you. Joe, this is your contract. They're going to offer you. And Joe, you know, I know he liked me because I was what he wanted. You know, I was the guy who was going to come in there. I didn't ask for specific people. I said, Joe, you put me in there. I'm going to come in. I'm going to bang and put on a good fight. And he'd go, oh, I love you. I know you will, Chris. You know, so he wanted me. And matter of fact, he even told me, you know, when they were doing negotiations for contracts, he was like, well, you know, this guy beat you, and he may, and if you get more than him, he's going to be upset. And we were having different talks like that, and I was like, Joe, here's my thing. I want guys who are going to come out there who are going to fight. I said, I want a guy who's going to try and knock me out or submit me, and I'm going to do the same. So if you put me in there with guys like that, I'm going to win the fight tonight every time. So that's my deal. I'll take less for my contract as long as you keep setting me up with guys who are going to come try and finish the fight. And he was like, well, we'll do that for you then, man. But I just having a conversation with him every time I talk with him, he was always very happy how I would perform, you know. And he would always be like, man, if we get more people to fight like you, you know, we'll get this sport, we'll take over the world with this sport. You know, I mean, we need more people who are just going to have that attitude of, you know, I'd rather win or lose a great fight than win a bad one. And I'm not willing to go out there. I did that once, and I didn't feel good about myself, and I'll never do it again. I can't do it. I mean, I have to not only win, but I have to win my way for me to be happy. If I go out there and I just kind of try and eke out a decision, and I don't do what I should have, I mean, is it smarter? Oh, absolutely. But, I mean, I know it's not a smart decision to be a fighter. It's not. I don't do it for that reason. Same thing, when I go out, you know, I ride my motorcycle. My fine state of Indiana, you don't have to wear a helmet, you know, and I've had helmets on, and I don't like the way it kind of blocks my back. I just don't like them, so I don't wear my helmet when I ride now. People are like, well, that's stupid for you to do. I said, man, if I want to be safe, I wouldn't ride a motorcycle. You know, I'd put a thing with its walls around it, you know, a car, but I don't ride a motorcycle because I want to be safe. I do it because I like the way it makes me feel. It's the same thing with fighting. I mean, I go out there to fight because I like how it makes me feel at the end of the day, and I have to fight that way in order to get that joy that I get out of it. So Joe understood that, and he appreciated it, and it helped him made him look good. So we had a great relationship. Every time, he'd always, anything I'd ask for anything, he'd always get it for me. He wanted to take care of me, so I would keep going over there and doing what I did for him.
Man, that's awesome. That's really awesome to hear. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. Just one more for me. You kind of already touched on it when you were talking about the bare knuckle scene and what it offers as far as that fighting spirit you were just touching on. But let me ask you, looking at just kind of without pointing to one organization or another necessarily, but with the mainstream MMA, do you see that as a lack? Because you're talking about this, and I think a lot of fans listening would agree with you. As far as what they want to see and what's more important, a fighter going out there and putting on a good fight or having that, perfect, immaculate perfection record that is so rare and usually never lasts. What do you think about the scene today? Is it lacking that?
100%. I mean, that was one of the beautiful things about, Pride. When Pride was still around, they not only did they have that idea and understanding that if you come out here and you fight your ass off and you fight the right way, we're going to bring you back, win, lose, or draw. I mean, you had guys who didn't have great records, but they put on great shows, and even the scoring was set up for that direction, If you didn't act enough, you'd get a yellow card. And what did the yellow card do? It took away some of your money. So people that want to get a yellow card, they're willing to fight, and they'd rather get knocked out than put on a bad fight and not get their money. But what I also did is just make people, you lost points if you didn't fight that way, if you weren't aggressive at the end. So they got it. They wanted the people to put on great fights, and if you did, they were going to reward you. That spirit's gone right now. We're here. I don't know if it was because the Japanese mentality was different or what it was, but in America we have this win at all cost mentality. It doesn't matter if you like put on a fight. It's like watching paint dry. Nobody cares. But, I mean, you're not going to sell as much, but I mean that's all that certain people care about. Like I'm 8-0. Well, that's great. Nobody wants to watch you fight. That's why when you got I mean, people say I'm worth this amount because I beat this guy and I beat this guy. You're not worth. If you can't get 10 people who want to watch you fight, you're not worth $1,000 to me. I don't understand. I mean, the whole that's the weird thing about this. It is a sport, but at the same time, it's entertainment. We got to get people to pay to watch this stuff. And if we can't get people to pay, we have a big problem. I mean, that's when you got the rare combination of someone like a Conor McGregor. He can go out and sell the fight. He can be a personality, and yet he can deliver on what he's been doing. Yeah, that's why the UFC will bend over backwards, do whatever he wants. They have to because he's very necessary for them right now. But I mean, a lot of people, if they don't have that skill set, they're just gonna, you can go out there and hold people down. You can take them down and not get submitted, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But you don't quote unquote deserve the big contract. So people have a big confusion between their ability to fight and their ability to sell the fight. And those are two very important things, and they're very different things, and people don't quite understand that. I really think the UFC has a little bit of a problem with that because I don't even know if it's their fault or if it's just the commission's fault by how they're scoring the fights. I personally like to see it go to more like a Pride type of rules where, you can be, yellow carded or something, or you're getting more points in the judge's eyes for aggression and trying to finish the fight. Or so there should be some way. I don't really know exactly what, but they should try and tweak it a little bit, because if you just try and make it where a boring fight is getting the benefit of what's going on there, that's what the sports is going to turn to. It's all going to be about I got to win this fight, and they're going to do what I have to and not care if people like it. That's a long answer for a short question. I apologize.
No worries, man. We haven't talked to you in a while, so it's great catching up on a variety of subjects. And I got two more if you have time, because we've taken up a lot of it so far.
All
right. I'll try and make it as quick as possible. I looked at your record. Just as you said, Pride, I looked at your record, and I remembered you were one of the guys that kind of had 3 different stints with the UFC. My question is, you fought all over the world. Why not with Pride? How did you not make it down there? Because you had pockets in your career where Pride was, they were in business, and they could have used a guy like you.
Well, to be honest with you, when I first I understand the Japanese culture is kind of part of that. When I first started fighting, like in 1999, for like bigger professional organizations, Pancrase was one of them. That was a Japanese organization, where, the Shamrocks came from and Boss Root and all those guys. So I first kind of started fighting with those guys. And, it's not quite like here or other places. You don't really jump ship and go into other organizations very often over there. So it was almost like a respect and honor type thing not to really go there. At the early points, they didn't have any of, it was only one weight class, so it would have been very difficult to do. Now, later on, they did develop other weight classes, but I still had a good relationship with Pancrase. And then by the end of that, I was kind of more just signed with the UFC. I really didn't have too much of an opportunity. I knew I could have at one point, but, I kind of felt, I have a little bit of issue. I'm like a loyalty to a fault mentality sometimes. And I've been over to Japan enough to know that, it's kind of a big no-no to, go just kind of fight for any organization over there. These other people were very good to me. Let me come stay at the gym. Let me train. Help me become a better fighter.
I see.
I didn't want to go over there and just try and jump over and take a little bit more money to go to a different organization.
Okay. And my last one is, you mentioned something that got me curious. You said you did fight and you won this particular fight, but it wasn't your style of fight. You were more pissed because, like you stated, you'd rather lose in an exciting fight than win a boring one. Which one was the one that you won that was boring, that you weren't pleased with?
Well, no, I didn't. And if I said I won, I didn't really mean I won. I fought one fight like that with that intent. I went out there with just try and win no matter what, don't care what it looks like. And I actually lost a split decision that one. That was the first time me and Matt Serra fought. And I felt, I didn't win that fight. One judge gave it to me, the other two gave it to him. But that was the only fight I can remember going into where, I said, I don't care what this fight looks like. I don't care what happens. I said, I'm going to do what I have to do to win because, there was so much riding on it for me.
I see.
A title shot, a lot of money, a lot of different things. But, that was the one fight where I was like, I'm just going to come out there and try and win this fight no matter what. And I could tell Matt Serra had the same plan. It was just his ball was pushing me against the fence. Mine was stopping a takedown. I'm winning. And at the end of the day, after I lost, first of all, I lost, my title shot, my money. That was very depressing for me. But then I said, man, I felt like I sold myself out. And now that I sold myself out, I didn't even get the payoff for it. So I was like, man, I'm never going to do this again because I don't feel good about me. Even if I had won, I think I wouldn't have felt that good about how I had to sell out to do it. But then at the end, I didn't even win the stuff. It was just like, it was the worst of everything. I got nothing positive out of it. It was definitely a low point in my fighting career where I was like, man, I'm not doing this anymore. If I do this anymore, I'm not gonna continue in the sport because it doesn't make me feel good about myself. So it was actually the first time I fought Matt Serra, and I didn't even get the win. So
we only have 1 minute left, and now this spawned yet another question. When Matt did go on and then fight George St. Pierre and he knocked him out, did you get more caught up in man, that could have been me, or were you happy for Matt? Because I know it seemed to us like you were very cool with Matt, through the season, through the fight. Do you remember how you felt when that happened?
You know what? I was so happy for Matt. It took me. I remember I was out of town. I remember I was driving back. It was later that night before I even put two and two together. I said, that could have been me. But no, Matt's one of my favorite guys in the sport. If anybody's ever hung out with him, he's a great guy. So I was so happy for him right there, especially. Nobody thought he could do it. Everybody thought, he's got no chance of beating this guy. And I'm just saying, no, he's got some power, and he's great on the ground. So he's got a chance to beat anybody. Is it going to happen? I don't know. He can be. I definitely knew he could. So when it happened, I felt nothing but happiness for him.
That's awesome.
Him very well. What he had going on in his family. I was very happy for him.
Very cool. Hey, Chris, man, it's been a great catch-up. We really enjoyed talking to you about everything. But, of course, on Saturday, the most important thing is your next fight at Bare Knuckle Fighting Championships. We'll be tuning in on Fight Night on Fight TV. And thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, fellas. Let me know afterwards. Maybe we can do this again.
Awesome. Take care, Chris.
See you guys.
All right, see ya. All right, folks, we got to take this last break for more information on Bare Knuckle Fighting, because he's right. Looks like they have added more cards than what I see on Fight TV. Go to bareknuckle.tv, www.bareknuckle.tv. And as far as what I was saying earlier, it is on Saturday. You can purchase the pay-per-view for $29.99, and it goes down at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Stay close. We'll be right back. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Fight Nation Channel 93.
I get paid to say things in this cool voice, and they get paid to be lame. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
It's fantasy football season, and Fantasy Sports Radio is helping you draft a winning team. Here, the experts analyze NFL training camps and preseason games from the fantasy football perspective. Learn winning strategies and find out which players you need to have on your team. Be the most prepared player at your fantasy football draft with Fantasy Sports Radio, Series 210, XM87, and streaming on your phone or at home with connected devices and speakers. We're going to cruise right into this next break here. It used to be the sports update, but it's no longer that. It's just a quick commercial to signal the end of the first hour. But we went like 30 minutes, right, with Lytle?
Yeah.
So we covered a lot before we shoved the 5-minute break down your guys' throats. But that's just kind of the way it is. We got about a minute to burn here. Goes Instagram, Twitter's the same, right? At the Goes?
All across the board, yeah. I'm at the Goes.
Danny Otto on
GOZ.
Twitter. What about everything else you got going on, Danny? Plug it.
It's on everything else. Danny Otto on Twitter, Instagram, even Facebook, actually. And then Poppin' Off is Poppin' Off Show on everything.
Tomorrow at 9 Eastern, right?
Yep.
All right. And then Dan Tom? Wait. Danny,
Yeah.
how can they get to it? What's the YouTube channel, or how can they get to Poppin' Off?
It's hard to get to there. I post it all over social media, so when we get a direct link, because it's one of those things where we're part of another group, so we don't have a direct link until it starts.
All right, at Danny Otto. Keep an eye on that. At Dan Tom MMA across the board. Dan, you back on Instagram?
Yeah, follow us on Instagram, though, at MMAjunkie Radio. Give us some follows there. We're going to try to build that up.
There you go. All right, folks. We're going to take this break here, and then we'll come back and talk some more MMA, maybe take some calls. Then we got Gray Maynard, followed by Dave LaGreca. get going here with the second hour of the MMA Junkie radio show. How'd you feel after yesterday's show, guys? Were you happy to start talking again?
Yeah.
It felt great, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, not going to lie.
I thought we were going to suck. We didn't do too bad.
No.
We thought we were going to suck or just be rusty?
Yeah, well, I thought it was going to be the worst rust we've ever encountered.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Because you got to remember, we were off 8 days,
Yeah.
but before that, we were all in different studios. So really, it's like 2.5 weeks of us not being all together. Even just the intricacies of having Danny in our ear, stuff like that, like it was all different. So I thought when we came back, we were going to be a total mess.
Voltron.
Yeah, but it wasn't too bad.
The leg's where the arm is. The arm's where the leg is.
Yeah.
Wait, let's try this again, guys.
Yeah. It was cool to come back and just start talking, and I'm glad we have a fight card on Saturday. You know, we never mean disrespect to the other organizations, but man, it just seems like 75% to 90%. You know, they all they want to talk UFC, no matter what. And sometimes the other organizations don't make it difficult for people to do that and insist on that. Like just last week alone, okay, Bellator had a card. They had a ranked fighter. I had to take a look at him just to have that little chatter where we discussed rankings. It was Darian Caldwell, but what was he doing? He was fighting a non-title fight at featherweight where he used to compete, but he's the bantamweight champ. And he went out and did his thing against Noad Lahat, who's 12-4, so he's got a respectable record. Extreme Couture, a.k.a. guy. That fight kind of came and went, and that's it. But Bellator, I think, is making a mistake by not following the Strikeforce blueprint, and that's have 6 to 8 stacked shows. Instead, they're into the 20s now, and you get what's called the 10-pole shows, but that's it. Those other ones where people are flying to Israel and Italy and Sioux Falls or whatever, I don't know, man. I don't think it's their way to compete and to keep their fighters happy too. I should be seeing Darian Caldwell against another tough bantamweight defending his title, you know. And
do you feel like it's going to change?
No, because I think the overseas market for television is tremendous. Just like, remember we were talking about UFC? How do they get to $7 billion?
Yeah.
Okay, they save pay-per-views, and they have the digital platform of Fight Pass, and ESPN gave them 1 point. But I really think those TV contracts overseas are pretty tremendous. I know, like, when Brazil was blowing up, I think Globo could say, we want Vitor.
Yeah.
You know, and but Vitor needs to fight over it. Nope, we want, like, they're able to call the shots because they're paying some money.
Yeah.
So the UFC has to listen to it. I think it was happening with Mexico a little bit. So they do carry some weight. But what I wanted to basically do was make that point, but also get us a little bit closer to our expiration time of the daily debate, because I want to get to it now because we're going to finish with guests and I don't want to rush off it. So with 13 minutes left here, this is the daily debate. I think we have a good idea of how this is going to go, though, and it's going to be a two-horse race here. You guys ready for today's question?
Yeah.
All right. What organization do you think Michael Chandler will eventually sign with? Now, before you answer, John Morgan caught up with him at Sioux Falls, and Chandler told him right at the end, he goes, I think in a week or two, this thing gets resolved. Now, here are your choices. Bellator, PFL, UFC, or other. Other could be Ryzen. Other could be, let's just say, somewhere in Russia. Yeah, one championship. It could be any of those. The voting, I can tell you right now, over 1,300 of you have voted. 51% say UFC, 43% say Bellator. And I'll repeat the question one more time. What organization do you think Michael Chandler will eventually sign with? And I want you guys to each answer it with who do you think he will sign with, but then since he's kind of a personal favorite of ours, who do you want him to sign with? So there you go. You go first.
I think he will re-sign with Bellator. I think they do a lot of things where they make him feel like a star, and he's at the top of everything. UFC, I think he's a smaller fish in a big pond, and I think that would be a little bit of a shock for him. But I personally think he has the skills to compete with those top guys in the UFC, so I would want him to see him go there.
How about you, Dan Tom?
You know, after listening to his conversation, like you said, with John Morgan on his podcast, the MMA Roadshow, it sounded like Chandler was probably leaning toward Bellator, that Bellator was coming hard for him, which I'm sure we can expect. I'm suspecting that's where he's going to go because of that interview. But where I want him to go, obviously, is the UFC. And how I would vote for this poll would be the UFC because they use the word eventually. Now, eventually is a really long stretch if he does sign with Bellator because, again, he's 22 hard fights in, and he's 32 years old. So, I mean, he's not old by any means, but not necessarily a young spring chicken either. So I'll say he's going to sign with Bellator, but I want him to sign with the UFC.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to re-sign with Bellator, but I wish he was with the UFC. And if you listen to everything he has to say, it boils down to this. And I'd like to just ask him, kind of like throw him against the wall. Go, hey, bitch, give me an answer. But I'm joking, Chandler. It boils down to taking care of his family and legacy.
Yeah.
Which one's more important? If you talk to Darren Till, all he cares about is legacy. You heard what he said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though that kind of got spun around a little bit, but he's thinking about legacy, man. He wants to be an all-time great. And then there's others that are show me the money, show me the money. They say that, you know. Okay, we all are cut from a different cloth. But Chandler, in my opinion, already gave Bellator that chance, that respect. Hey, you guys birthed me. You created me. I'm one of your guys. And he re-signed a few years ago. And Bellator was supposed to supply him with some lightweights to fight. Because Brooks had left, Alvarez had left, and they brought in Benson, they brought in Josh. But that didn't work out too well. You know what I mean? He never even got to fight Josh. They were just guys that are a little bit older. And I don't believe they held up their end of the bargain. So that's why I think this time Chandler could go to the UFC. And even if things didn't work out, he could still come back and finish with Bellator. I've seen it in other professional sports where they go and they do their thing and then they come back and finish up with the team they started with, or you know, whatever. But that legacy thing, man, because if you really talk to Chandler for long periods of time, it pisses him off when anyone tells him, well, but you're not in the UFC and you're not competing in the UFC, but you couldn't beat Khabib or Kevin Lee or this guy or that guy. You know, because he's banging with those guys at Henry Hoofs and in Arizona, when he was back in San Diego and here, you know, so he knows he can compete with those guys. So Chandler, if he really wants to prove it, if he wants to cement the legacy, he has to go to the UFC, in my opinion. And I don't think he should feel guilty about it. That's the problem, that he would be leaving Bellator. I hope he does it. I hope he reconsiders and goes to the UFC. It's not like the UFC pays bad. I mean, maybe Bellator does pay better. We've heard that. But it's not like the UFC pays bad. And it's not like if you become champ, you can't eclipse anything Bellator does. Ask Eddie Alvarez what he made off the Conor McGregor fight. So, there you have it. A long-winded daily debate. But we've been on vacation. We want to get all this off our chest. And I thought this was a good one because Chandler's a guy that we all know well. So, there you have it. That's the daily debate. All right, let's talk about Ryzen 11. Haha, just kidding. Instead, let's go to the phone calls. We are going to talk to Marco in Waco, Texas. What's up, Marco?
Not
much. How about you?
I'm doing okay. Taking care of the 2-year-old. Hey, my 2 cents on the challenge going to the UFC or Bellator. If he doesn't sign with the UFC now, he's never going to sign with the UFC because this is the one spot. He's still in his prime at 33 years old. He's still a high commodity. But the next contract, whatever it is going to take him to 35 or 36. And we haven't seen the UFC sign many 35, 36-year-old lightweights, haven't we? So I think this is the last chance we have to see Michael Chandler on the UFC.
I agree.
Real quick, man.
Division.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen now.
All those guys that came over from Pride, even though they had left some of their best years behind, it was still special to see them. Remember when Dan Henderson competed, you know, finally came over in Vandalay and Crow Cop? It was still pretty special to see. And I don't want him to wait till 35 or 36, however long his next contract is. I respect that Bellator and Viacom have taken care of him, and I think they can respect it. If he were to go and ply his trade over there and then come back, he should still be able to do it, and they shouldn't hold it against him. Because at the end of the day, it's just business. It's the same way where if something doesn't work out for Bellator and they cut that fighter, and the fighter goes, "Why'd you cut me?" They'd go, "It's business, right? It's business." So I don't know. I love the kid. You know, we were close to him when he lived here. He was our landlord for 5 years.
Right.
So we've had plenty of conversations with him, but I just know how competitive he is and how much he really wants to prove what he says by fighting other fighters, and there's really only one way to do it. Had Bellator kept giving them more lightweights, and I go, well, they're holding up their end of the bargain, but I haven't seen that division. You know, I'll pull it up in a second while Marco finishes his call, but I don't. Do you guys see a stacked lightweight division in Bellator?
No,
I
not
don't.
at all.
Yeah.
No.
Go ahead, Marco. Continue.
Real quick question editor. We saw James Gallagher getting pushed to us on Friday, and another, prodigy of Conor McGregor at the Dylan Dennis is also a guy that talks a lot of trash to. You got to look at your home with James Gallagher, and Tony Dennis will do something very similar might happen to you. Peace out, guys.
All right, see you, bud. I don't think those guys care. I think if they lose, they lose. I think it's just the roll of the dice to be cocky and to call your shot. And if it don't work, you dust yourself off and you just come back and keep doing it again. But if you're just going to go through the motions, it's not going to satisfy them, especially when you're around a guy like Conor McGregor who's done it.
Can I add something tying in Conor McGregor to the Chandler thing real quick before we jump off that? I think from what I got from that interview too is that it seems so clear cut, and our argument stands on why we want to see Chandler and all the possibilities in the UFC, yada yada. But one thing we haven't really taken account for is the changing of the UFC that we often talk about here on that show, and I think these fighters are getting aware to it. You know, when I hear Chandler talking about, what am I going to be if I go over there? Do you just become a space filler? The money's not bad by any means, like a UFC contract, but it's not as good. And you look at it, how they kind of, am I just going to be a person who I'm just going to, a name where they're going to sell advertising space? Now, personally, I think Chandler makes the list if we did a spectrum from, I think Goes did it in a bunch of different categories, but maybe just a spectrum, a Conor McGregor to a Michael Chandler. I feel would be names that you could put on a top of obviously a fight night, but even on a pay-per-view, if you match Chandler up correctly, he would be toward the bottom of the spectrum. Obviously, Conor toward the top. But as far as value, I think Chandler brings that value to the UFC that they should put money to him. I think he would be classified as a headlining name. They gave Gaethje that treatment.
I was just about to say that. We only have to go back 1 year and look at the way they treated Gaethje. He was headlining against Michael Johnson on the day before the International Fight Week pay-per-view main card or a card. So I know he fought that one. That was a classic. He got to be a coach, right? So he did that. Yeah. Then he got to fight Alvarez. That was a classic. He had some moments where he was winning that fight too. And then he comes back and he still got Poirier. So it's not like, oh my God, the stock just went downhill. Eddie Alvarez, he came in, he lost to Cowboy. All right, but they considered it a solid fight, and that's why he kept getting great matchups until he comes in, boom, knocks out Rafael dos Anjos, became a world champion. So, they if they're going to pay you pretty good and they're going to bring you in, as a free agent and promote you, trust me, they'll treat you well. And I know Chandler says there's things, that there's other things that might happen. I don't know. So I'm thinking like Magic Johnson. I mentioned this 3 months ago. Maybe they're telling him, you're going to be part of the management team, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. Or whatever. All right, cool. But how do you know those opportunities might not present themselves over there? How do you know you might not? He's a good-looking dude too. Like, how do you know you might not be part of the ESPN panel? How do you know what other opportunities might come? I'm not shitting or pissing on Viacom or all their sponsors or anything like that. But how do you know all those other things won't do? Again, it's that legacy that I feel like he really wants to pursue, and just know that he fought the best and no one can ever question, where he stands. That's why I think he needs to go for that. One more. Showtime from Tennessee. What's up, Showtime? It's yo time.
What's going on, friends?
What's up, buddy?
Showtime.
Nothing much. I mean, I wanted to give you guys a call back yesterday, man. My fucking signal was so crazy, and I didn't want to do y'all like that, so I just listen to the show, man, and good to have you guys back, man. I miss you guys.
Thank you.
It was hell trying to kill basically 2 weeks, man. I'm gonna tell you guys something, man, and I don't know if y'all realize that a lot of us like real junkies, you guys consume our day, man. If you guys on the air 365, a lot of us, man, will listen to you guys every day, and some listen to you live. Like I would see the show on on YouTube live. But a lot of guys I know come back to work, come back and listen to the show every night, when they get off work. And you guys, provide a big amount of time for us MMA junkies, man.
Thank you, brother. That means a lot. And I've always said it, for someone to take 2 hours of their day to listen to us, that means a lot. That is a lot of time that we ask, and I know that not everybody can get to every show, but we'll be here. We try and have you guys count on us, because I know what it's like when, you know, my favorite TV shows or whatever, you know, when they go off and we don't see them for 3 months or a whole year. You know, Netflix, here's 10 shows, see you in a year. You're like, oh my God, you know, but such a long wait. But we really try and pride ourselves on being there. There's been times when Dan and I did the show, Goes and took some days off, or when Dan was gone, Goes and I did shows, and even when I was gone, Goes and Dan did shows. So the one thing you could count on was the show, but this one was one where we just all needed to unplug because the one common denominator was Danny Otto, so even he needed to decompress. But thank you, man. Thanks for the kind words.
Oh, yeah, man. Hey, and on the note, I just want to kind of go back to what you guys were just talking about. Damn, man, Gallagher messed up my weekend, man. But he got knocked out. You know, when a kid starts his Gallagher.
Yeah.
The way that kid starts, then, man, you know, when I lose my money, the guy come out and just fucking starts, I mean, you just throw your hands up and like, fuck, you know, it's a fight game. That, you know, that's how it happens, man. But that was crazy, man. I didn't realize that kid he was fighting trained with the killers he trained with on a daily basis. So, you know, when it happened, I wasn't surprised. You know, like my boy said, I ain't surprised, motherfucker. You know, when I heard he trained with killers on a daily basis, man. But I'm excited about this card this weekend, man. Just think, man, it's really kind of having a lull with the UFC cards. We're just giving us that little breather, you know, before shit get crazy, you know, leading up to, you know, Conor and Khabib and all that. This is a good card, man, to kind of get that taste back in our mouth, man. And I'm anxious to hear you guys break down with Dan Tom and hear what, you know, George Goes will try to say about this card, too.
Right on. Well, anything we do in regards to that, or our guys on site, you'll see at least our main event breakdown. I know today we have to submit a co-main event breakdown, so you'll have that, and I'm sure throughout the week we'll tell you which way we're leaning as far as the rest of the fight cards. Dan's got some articles still to come out, and you know, we have our parlays, and you know us, we're always going for it. We may get slapped around, but we'll be right back the following week submitting more, trying to win some and lose some. So anyway, thanks, Showtime. We got to go to break. It's always great to catch up with you folks. It's MMA Junkie Radio on Sirius XM's Fight Nation Channel 93. Stay close. We'll be right back.
compassion, common sense. These guys have none of that. You listen to them, so you're no better. I am awesome, though. They are Gorgeous George and Goes.
The kickoff to college football season is fast approaching, and no one knows about your favorite school like the experts on SiriusXM's college conference channels. From Heisman Trophy hopefuls to make-or-break Week 1 games, our analysts are getting you ready for the start of the season. Hear it all on SiriusXM ACC Radio Channel 371, SiriusXM Pac-12 Radio Channel 373, and SiriusXM SEC Radio Channel 374, and streaming on your phone or at home on SiriusXM connected devices and speakers. All right, our next guest, Vegas-based Gray Maynard. He'll be mixing it up with Nick Lentz, and that's on the UFC 229 card here in Las Vegas on October 6th. I got to imagine camp is fully underway, and we'll get an intense Gray Maynard. What's up, Gray? How you doing? Good to talk to you.
Good. What's going on with you, man?
Not much, man. Welcome back to MMA Junkie Radio. You're on with George, Goes, and Dan Tom. All right, buddy. So how long ago did the camp start? We recently heard about the fight booking, but did you already have a good feeling that you were going to be on this card?
Yeah, we knew that we were going to be on the card. You know, just been kind of training as usual. You know, I don't really take too many breaks, so you know, always kind of have that good base and gearing it up now.
You're returning to lightweight. Was that what you wanted?
Yeah.
Did the UFC suggest it because of the matchup that was there? How'd that come about?
You know what? The last time I competed was July, and you know, took a little time off. We had a baby. You know, I had to move around a little bit. So just kind of chose to go back up. Didn't really feel like I put my best foot forward with my last showing there. So just wanted to go back up and try it. You know, I can still go back down, go up, whatever it is. So, yeah, just going to try it out again.
Mm-hmm. So you're fighting another Big Ten guy in Nick Lentz. Did you guys, whether it was, I'm not sure of your college careers, whether they crossed or not, I believe he's younger, but did you guys ever wrestle at all, even in any other circuit?
Where did he go?
Minnesota.
Oh, he went to Minnesota? I didn't know that. No, we didn't. He might be a little younger.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you even like fighting other wrestlers, or do you prefer the classic grappler versus striker to see, you know, if your secondary skill is better than their secondary skill?
Yeah, I mean, you know, each person is kind of different, and you know, it's always interesting. It's got to the point where it's more interesting is like whoever it is, if it's a striker, grappler, just kind of picking out the holes now, you know, and you know, he's a tough kid, grappler, so you know, just got to check out the tapes and yeah, it's just kind of an interesting matchup. So
is everything done at Extreme Couture, or do you go to the PI or any of the other gyms in Vegas just maybe to sharpen up other skills?
Yeah, I just got done at the PI today. Did my strength and conditioning with Bo Sandoval. So you know, I'll go over there like 2-3 times a week. You know, to train. Extreme Couture is more of my skills-based gym. You know, my grappling, drilling, and so those are pretty much the only 2 gyms I do go to. Besides, like going out on a run or you know, going to a kind of big box gym to go swim. Mm-hmm.
Gray Maynard joining us here on MMA Junkie Radio. He'll be fighting Nick Lentz on October 6th at UFC 229, which is headlined by Habib Nurmagomedov, the UFC lightweight champion, who will be defending his title versus Conor McGregor. All right, Goes, what do you have for Gray Maynard?
Gray, I want to ask you two questions, and I want you to pinpoint two moments in your career. And the first one is, do you remember, I know anytime I've had to break down one of your fights, I remember you coming off of Tough, and everybody always talked about the wrestling, but there was a certain point where people stopped looking at you as just the wrestler. You became the mixed martial artist, right? You started throwing really hard. You had your submission game going. Do you remember when that exact moment was when you felt that change had come about?
You know, I really started to get into boxing it was after my Dennis Seaver fight. I started to get into boxing gyms and going to gyms around here. It just really started to kind of study the art. I always watched it, but I never really studied it. And, you know, just whoever I could learn from, I would. The grappling part of it, I mean, it was always there. And I felt like the boxing I really got after my Seaver fight. You know, I really just kind of immersed into that. And then my grappling, I just started to pick up like my game in the past 2-3 years. So I can't really pinpoint it, but you know, at the beginning of my career, you get in that jiu-jitsu mode, like this is how you grapple. You grapple kind of like a jiu-jitsu player, and that never felt comfortable to me. Over the course of my career, just in the past 2 years, I've kind of created my grappling game. You know, it's not a jiu-jitsu game. It's kind of a heavy on top, you know, geared towards me.
Gotcha. And I've seen at the gym, I've seen this plenty of times where people are watching the pro practice and they'll look around and then they'll see you and they'll go, oh, that's Gray Maynard. And in the early days, it would always be, oh, that's Gray Maynard from Ultimate Fighter. Do you remember when you felt like maybe you shedded that label a little bit? And, you know, there's always the new guys in the locker room, right? But then you become the veteran. Do you remember when that kind of happened?
It seems like when I got into the title fight, kind of got into you know, the top 5, the top 3. You know, you're still a part of it, but you know, you're kind of looked at, you know, as an elite. You know, and then afterwards, just, you know, just like a lot of time goes by to where it just is like, oh, he's been around in the sport forever. He fought for the title. You know, we're going on 10, 11 years now to where I was on the TV show, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just time. You know, people forget that stuff. You know, but, you know, a lot of the title stuff, people, you know, are more kind of interested in.
All right, Dan Tom, our fight analyst, what do you got for Gray Maynard?
Hey, Gray, you know, Goes was just talking about moments that where you felt you kind of coming into your own, whether it's skills, whether it's your position as a fighter with the company. Kind of staying on that topic, maybe taking you back for a little bit. I got to imagine if I were to try to answer for you from an outsider's perspective, I got to imagine maybe around, you know, your first fight with Frankie Edgar, and also you know, a couple fights later, your fight with Roger Huerta, which, you know, had some interesting storylines going into it for people that weren't aware. Did any of those spark any memories for you, Gray? You know, Fight Night 13 back in Colorado, which was an awesome card. You had Nate Diaz on there, guy you would fight later, and Kenny Florian, another guy you would fight later, headline that card, or your fight with Roger Huerta, all the kind of storylines heading into that one. any of those spark any interesting memories for you?
Yeah, I remember my Edgar fight, the first one. Like, I remember breaking my hand in round 1, you know, and just kind of knowing that he was, a scrappy, a scrappy guy, and you know, he's going to keep coming, and it was just a choice of, like, all right, you can kind of hide this hand and chance, you know, kind of lose him, or you can just throw it, and who cares, we'll deal with it later, you know, to win to win, and that's kind of where I made that choice, and just knowing your body can get through whatever it is, and you know, it always just kind of pays off at the end. Huerta was one of those, you know, weird deals to where he was on the out, you know, and they want, you know, I felt a little bit of pressure to kind of beat him up, you know, pretty good. And just a scrappy guy, too, you know. And I gave him, there was a couple times I punched him pretty hard. I had Kimura, it was locked up, you know, tight. You know, I heard it probably pop 2-3 times.
Wow.
And, you know, he just kept going. But, yeah, I mean, all of the stuff, you kind of, you know, I have different just kind of ideas about it, just kind of knowing played out and you know, but, yeah.
So just taking that. No worries. That's actually really interesting. Both those intricacies I weren't aware about, from your injury to even Huerta's possible injury. But taking that full circle now, obviously training back at Extreme Couture, but I haven't been there, but I still follow, you know, my friends like Eric, Nick 6 Feet and stuff. And I'm seeing you do a lot more coaching. Is that something you've been doing more of, or just maybe something that, you know, we're, you know, seeing more of on the social media?
Yeah. You know, again, as you get older, you get a little bit smarter about how you train, and I'm always in the gym. I mean, there really isn't a day to where, you know, I'm not in the gym or going on hikes or doing, just keeping my body going. You know, I try to move every day, and but obviously I'm not going on the well every day sparring and you know, just going live. And again, over the course of my career, you know, I've been to a lot of different camps, and that's always stuff that kind of interested me was how can we make this sport better through training? You know, everybody wants, like, all the moves, but I was more interested in, like, you know, how to train. Like, you look at a business, and they're trying to streamline everything, obviously to make more money, to, you know, to last longer, and that's how a pro athlete really should take their career is how can I streamline my training? How can I get the most out of my career? How can I make money the longest? And you know, I really feel like MMA is in its kind of infancy still with training. You know, we got the PI and doing a great job on just keeping track of what people are doing. You know, I feel like I was ahead of the game on looking for new ways to train. Maybe it didn't play out on a certain kind of competition, but I was always trying new stuff. I was always going to new camps. I was always, you know, doing stuff. And I want to be able to help kids coming up now, because anybody who can make it, like, in MMA, you know, I'm happy. I'm happy. I want to see every guy in here, you know, make enough money to retire and, you know, just do good, just because it's a hard fucking sport.
Yeah,
you know?
It sure is.
And a lot of times coaches and athletes make it harder on themselves, you know, just beating the shit out of themselves. And, you know, I really want to open people's eyes to
you can make it a little bit easier. You can make it a little bit smarter and just more streamlined. And so, you know, of course, I try to help out whoever asks me, or if it's a chance, you know, to coach, you know, I jump on it.
Well, first things first, though, you're still a fighter, and you got this fight coming up versus Nick Lentz, and we look forward to it. I'm glad it's here in Las Vegas, so we'll get to see it in person. Yeah. And thank you very much for joining us on the show. It's always great to have you.
Definitely. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, Gray. Talk to you soon.
All right. Bye.
All right. Gray Maynard versus Nick Lentz on UFC 229. They get the show started. At least that's the way we've listed it here on Junkie. As we get closer, we'll figure out that whole bout order, and it'll be there for you on the app and the website. Stay close. We'll be right back with Dave LaGreca from Busted Open. We'll talk some pro wrestling.
He taught Andy Griffith how to whistle. Here are Gorgeous George and Goes.
NBA Radio is your headquarters for all things basketball this summer. From free agency signings to trade rumors and social media gossip, whether it's happening on or off the court this offseason, we're discussing it on NBA Radio, Series 207 XM86, and streaming on your phone or at home on Sirius XM connected devices and speakers. All right. Our next and last guest of the day is Dave LaGreca. He's the host of Busted Open here on our channel, Fight Nation, Channel 93. His co-hosts are Bully Ray and Mark Henry. I catch him on the way to work. His show is 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Excuse me. That's the live show, and then they replay at 12 Eastern.
Do you know why he's here?
Because we're going to talk about Ronda Rousey.
Because we're Muppets. But this guy knows his stuff.
Yeah, we try, man. We try with
Muppet
the little
theories. We have Muppet
little
takes.
bit that we know about pro wrestling. In no way compares to the in-depth chat that these guys have on the show, and it is an everyday show, folks. So check it out. All right, let's bring them on. What's up, Dave LaGreca? How you doing today?
What's up? I would love to come on here one time and we not talk about Ronda.
Okay, let's talk Brock. No, I'm just kidding. But
I want you guys to teach me how to whistle like Andy Griffith.
We did teach him.
Well, you know what? I'm a little Ronda'd out, honestly, Dave. I think the other guys are a little bit more pumped up. But, hey, what she did was remarkable. She is a world champion now. So, along with her Strikeforce and UFC bantamweight titles and her bronze medal in judo, now she is a world champion at WWE. Pretty remarkable for combat sports career.
Yeah, I mean, she's done just about everything you can do. I mean, just looking at our channel and what we cover on Fight Nation, she would probably be the poster child for just about everything, and especially the women's movement in combat sports. She's on the forefront of that. She did it for the UFC, and now she's doing it for the WWE. So, yeah, it's pretty big accomplishment for sure.
Dave, was it too soon? Are the other women on the roster, what do they think of it? They've been doing this for a long time. I think Ronda's been at it for less than a year, and she's already a world champion. That's something we talked about on Monday's show. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to some of the women on the WWE roster, and, we get mixed emotions. Some people that you could tell that they're frustrated at the fact that they've been there for years and been on the road for years and going to live events and pay-per-views and not getting this type of opportunity. And she comes in and she gets it right away. But, that is life. I mean, she's a mainstream name. She's a mainstream attraction. If I was somebody on that roster, I would stand up and say, I want to be her next challenger. I want to be in the ring with Ronda Rousey. She brings that type of attention. And for somebody like myself that covers the sport day in and day out, ESPN is going to cover it. The Good Morning America is going to cover it. The mainstream media is going to cover it just for Ronda Rousey because she's that type of name. So, to me, you got to strike while the iron's hot. It's the world of pro wrestling. The world of pro wrestling is half circus, so it's showmanship, and it's bigger than life. Ronda Rousey is the... Listen, I don't care if she's been there for a year, 5 years, or 1 week. You got to capitalize on her popularity.
She's very popular, and she's a very talented athlete. But would you call her a talented pro wrestler just yet?
Not yet. No, I mean, it's too soon. I mean, you got to understand, too, it's not like she just walked in here and all of a sudden got a challenge. She worked at the Performance Center for quite some time before getting the opportunity to move up to the main roster. And let's face it, at WrestleMania 34, she probably had the greatest wrestling debut of all time. What she was able to do in that ring with Kurt Angle and Triple H and Stephanie McMahon was phenomenal. And, no, she's not perfect yet. She still needs work in the ring. She still needs work on the microphone. But again, it comes down to, mainstream attention. You know it in the world of the UFC.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pro wrestling in the UFC right now. Should Brock Lesnar be coming back and right away getting a championship title opportunity just based on what he's done?
He should
no,
not,
because
right.
If you look at it, he hasn't won a fight legitimately won a fight since 2010. So he shouldn't be walking into an octagon and challenging the champion and saying, "I want you next." It's a bit ridiculous if you think about it, but again, it's showmanship, it's good business, and I think we're seeing the examples of that in both Brock Lesnar and Ronda Rousey.
I just wanted to know more for my novice eyes, because I did watch pro wrestling in different times of my life, and I remember a young lady named Lita. Fuck, dude, she was badass. She was awesome, you know, like.
Yeah.
And when the little I've seen of Ronda, I'm like, well, there's talent there, and I'm sure in the end, maybe we can put her up there if they have a Mount Rushmore or whatever. But right now, I'm seeing way more. Well, I remember seeing way more greatness out of a few of the other ones. But Dave's kind of. I understand what he's saying. It's a business. It's a business in his sport. It's a business in our sport. All right, Goes. What do you have for Dave LaGreca?
Dave, we were talking yesterday about this, and we were saying that because she's had this road to the title so quickly, we were trying to figure out if that means in professional wrestling, does that mean that there could be kind of a timestamp on how long she wants her career to last with WWE, and maybe that's why they got to that point? Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think absolutely. I mean, that's why I say strike while the iron's hot. You don't know how long she's going to be a part of the WWE. She's made it very clear that, she's married, she wants to start having children, so you got to look at it in terms of how long is she going to be a part of WWE. Is it going to be 3 years? Could it possibly be 5 years? I don't know if we have an answer for that. So, yeah, I think that definitely comes to mind as far as how long she's going to be a part of this company. When she's, talking to TMZ and telling them, yes, I don't know how long I'm going to do this. I do want to start a family. Then there is a time stamp on this. So again, it goes back to you got to do the most of what you have in the time that you have it. And I think that's a big reason why they're pushing her so far so soon.
The Four Horsemen is something that George and I and Dan, we grew up watching. And it was so cool, and it meant so much. But the term being thrown the other way, female-wise, the Four Horsewomen, seems like it gets thrown around a little too quickly, especially when we were looking at their MMA records. It just didn't mount up to what you would see on the pro wrestling side. Those were superstars. What's your take on the Four Horsewomen, and do you think this will eventually translate to WWE and be successful?
Yeah, I think it can be, and honestly, and I'm just saying as someone that, knows a little MMA, but obviously not nearly as much as you guys do. I'm more of a casual watcher. When MMA fighters come to the WWE, and it seems to be a trend. I mean, there's even more rumors about other fighters wanting to jump from the UFC to the WWE. I know as a fan, I really don't care what they did in the UFC. Like Shayna Baszler is a perfect example. I know she didn't exactly have a winning record when she was in MMA, but she's incredible as part of the NXT brand for the WWE. So I think it's just more about the fact that she has an MMA background and she's credible and she brings a different style to the ring. I think that's all that matters. It's a different personality. It's a different character. I don't think their records, so to speak, really factor into how a wrestling fan is going to watch them in the squared circle.
Dave, that's a great point. I just want to touch on that real quick, because we were talking about Rousey earlier, and I was mentioning, I like the Ken Shamrock angle as far as what they did with Shamrock back in the day, where I didn't even follow UFC that hardcore, to be honest, in '97. But I was like, this guy is a cage fighter. So when he grabbed on for his ankle locker, he grabbed on his submissions. There was a validity there. So essentially, what you're saying from the quote unquote, Gen Papa, a professional wrestling fan experience is that they don't necessarily care, like you said, about the record, that just coming from our world of mixed martial arts, that still holds reverence. Is that what you're saying to some of the fan base there?
Yeah, because I don't think the fans really that really factors in. Think about it with Ronda Rousey. There's nobody really talking about how she lost her 2 fights in the UFC because the fans don't care. It's just somebody different, somebody credible, a real combat athlete, a name and a face that they know. I think that's all that really matters. And that's the biggest thing, and the biggest difference between the world of MMA and pro wrestling is that pro wrestling is a show that has sport. MMA is exactly the opposite, though you see a lot more show being factored into the sport of MMA, and the fans are kind of split on it. I know pro wrestling fans are a little bit more relax on that. They don't mind the world of MMA and UFC kind of bleeding in to their world. I think, and you guys would be a better judge of this, I just know from the phone calls that I have taken and from even some of the hosts that we have on Sirius XM, they hate it. Like, they hate the world of pro wrestling coming into their world of the quote-unquote credible UFC. But the UFC has a problem with mainstream name, and the UFC has a problem right now with popularity and getting people to watch their pay-per-views. So you're starting to see the world of pro wrestling bleed into the world of the UFC, and I think both sports could benefit from it.
When we talk about crossover, a name that gets tossed around a little bit is Travis Brown. He's at a lot of Ronda's wrestling gigs. It seems like he likes it. Seems like he's kind of got that look. Have you heard anything about him wanting to give this a try?
I mean, he's, like I said, that there's been some rumors and stuff. He's one of those names that I've heard about, somebody that kind of may want to take that leap. And I think you're going to hear a lot more of that when you see, like, a Shayna Baszler and a Ronda Rousey and even a Brock Lesnar, of, you know, being able to make top dollar and not taking that beating like you do in the octagon. Now, there's other sacrifices. Pro wrestlers are on the road a heck of a lot more. They have to do a heck of a lot more media appearances, but you're obviously not going to get that toll on your body like you do in the combat sport of UFC. And you get more mainstream attention, which is going to get more, you know, top dollars when it comes to commercials and stuff like that. So I really do think that they've kind of become trailblazers in a way that a lot more MMA fighters are going to want to make that jump into the world of the WWE.
So, Dave, we only got like 2 minutes left, but I did want to ask you something, because you touched on something that I've heard on your show. You said the fans didn't care when Ronda came over and she had lost. But I caught your show I catch it a lot on the way to work, and you seem to have a problem with if Brock came over and got his butt kicked versus Cormier, that wouldn't be good for him going back to WWE. So it's the two things. So you've kind of said built up the same scenario, but you've said two different things. Can you clarify?
Well, because it's different, and this is why we just saw Brock Lesnar lose that Universal title on Sunday. If he was to remain champion and walk into an octagon against the DC, you know, representing the WWE with that title, and then he got his butt kicked, it would look bad. Like, I just think that somebody that's going to do both. Now, we're talking different things, because we're talking about a UFC fighter moving over to the WWE. But if you're going to blend both worlds, then you're going to have to excel at both, because, yeah, you're representing the WWE, and if you get embarrassed in the octagon, it's not going to look good for the WWE when you try to go back to the WWE, especially if you can remain champion.
Well, that's how we know you have a good show, because you evoked an emotion out of me. I remember driving, and I was yelling, going, wait a minute. Ronda Rousey, you know, and same thing you had just said. She didn't have the best ending. You know, she got her butt kicked twice, and wow, she was well received at WWE. But I'm glad you clarified. You mean as far as somebody that's doing both, so I get it.
Yes. No problem, Eddie. Anytime you get emotional, give me a call. We'll get you on the air.
Right on, my man. Except Bully Ray doesn't like MMA, so I'm afraid he's going to cuss me up and
put you through a table.
Chew me up, put me through a table, and send me packing.
Listen, you guys are the exception. There's a lot of those MMA, you know, elitists that just kind of piss on the world of pro wrestling. You guys are true professionals, and you're well beyond that. We'll never do such a thing.
Thank you, sir. It was great to have you on. We really appreciate it. And, folks, check out Dave LaGreca along with Bully Ray and Mark Henry on Busted Open, the award-winning Busted Open, live at 9 a.m. Eastern Start Time. You get them for 3 hours with a replay at 12 p.m. Eastern Start Time. Take care, Dave. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll see you. All right, folks, you'll get more combat sports and entertainment headed your way. Could be Busted Open, could be the Luke Thomas Show, could be MMA Tonight at the fights. A lot of quality programming. Stay tuned for that. The rest of you head on over to MMA Junkie, to our YouTube page. Osamo Team.
The nighttime turning night into daytime. If you see it once, you'll never be the same again. I'm gonna keep on the run, gonna have me some fun. If it costs me my very last dime, if my wind-up broke, well,
you guys are clear for overtime.
All right, cool. I wanted to do a couple things here, but we'll start off with taking a call from Nick Abbott, long time listener of the show, and then a few things to clear up here. Nick Abbott, what's up, buddy?
Not much. How are you?
Good, and you?
Good. Glad to see you guys are back from vacation. It's nice to hear your voices.
Thank you.
Awesome, man.
Hey, I was listening to yesterday's show, and I'm looking forward to the Khabib-Conor fight. And you guys were talking about how Khabib's not going to fall into the little head games that Conor's going to try to play with him. But, you know, when you hear about guys who are golfing with Tiger Woods and they're just not ready for that media blast that comes with playing golf with Tiger, do you think that we kind of have the same effect with Conor?
I mean, look, it's just talking. Yeah, you might get frustrated at that moment. I don't think that that's always the decider. Maybe it's like a, I don't know. Maybe one guy gets to start on ready, set, and the other guy has to wait for go. You know, but I don't know. I think the guys that lost to Conor were probably gonna be destined to lose to him anyway. It's just something nice for them to say. Well, that was one of the reasons my head wasn't into it. But like Jose Aldo, I mean, he just got clipped. You know what I mean? Like, we all know that if they were to fight again, we don't know A, who would win, and B, if Conor did win, it sure as hell wouldn't happen in 13 seconds.
Mendez would have a good case, though.
Yeah. Wait. I don't think he got in Mendez's head, do you?
Well, no.
I think Mendez just got tired.
Hey, I didn't have a full camp.
I mean, Eddie really tried to wrestle. He tried to try some striking, and he didn't have it.
Well, Eddie has said that it got to his head.
Bro, I'll agree with Dan Tom. We were talking about this the other day. It was either on the air or off the air. Conor did show some improved takedown defense.
Totally.
He's totally thwarted Eddie on that day. But Eddie, I've never really seen him be that great other than the Pettis fight, where you can go, wow, that wrestling, man, it's coming out, or anything. That's why I'm not so convinced that Conor can just do that and stop Khabib. I think Khabib's a whole other animal than Eddie is. I know Eddie's got some wrestling, but he kind of had that Matt Lindland style where he's just down on your knees and digging in and trying to get you. And Conor was able to create a strong base. I think Poirier maybe, but then Poirier also, look how great he is at 55. Maybe it really was the weight cut. So I don't think so, Nick. I don't think Khabib's going to get caught up in that. You saw his reaction. He didn't look. There was a lot of pro fighters that looked very concerned on that bus. Khabib didn't look concerned at all. So I think Conor can say what he wants, and Khabib will feel okay come fight night.
Well, do you think Khabib's media obligations will probably double? How much more media obligations do you think the UFC is going to put on Conor, or how much more media is going to be there after the incident that he's had coming into this fight?
I think they're all in at this point.
Yeah, and I think what they should do, I'd really like to see them do Wednesday be their media day, not Thursday when they've begun that weight cut and their voice is changing, and I think it's the big TVs outside.
Okay.
I'd really like to see them move that up and let Thursday just be open workouts, where if you feel great, then go do an open workout, and if not, then you sign autographs, say a few things, do the Takanari Gomi and just throw 6 punches and get the hell out of Dodge, whatever, But I don't think so. He's done a good job of shutting it down right now, and that's the way these athletes are going to be about it, going forward. So I don't think it'll make a difference.
One more on the way out. Do you have, or can you get any kind of update on Alexis Vila? We haven't heard from him in years.
We were talking about him the other day, remember?
Yeah, when did he come up?
We were talking about one of the stories that he told.
Yeah, he basically plowed into the airport, right?
Yeah. That's a good question.
To get away from a bad guy, to get deported back to Cuba.
I know some people that know him, so I could maybe get an answer for you on that.
There you go.
Right on. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
All right, see you, Nick. Thanks for your support over all the years, buddy. All right, so Chandler. Oh, I know. Remember I said I was going to look up the Bellator, guys? Here's what they got going on. Rickles, who I think wound up fighting at welter in his last fight. Patricky, he knocked him out already. Syed Awad. Have they fought? Chandler, Syed Awad?
No, they have not. Syed Awad he just got
He might have a title fight
He's
coming
fighting
up.
Benson Henderson, isn't he?
Yeah,
I think so, actually.
He's on a roll. Derek Campos was on a roll. I think he's dropped a couple. Brandon Gertz. Like, these fighters haven't developed at the rate that Chandler did. Chandler was a ranked fighter. He's in that HM spot now. And the fact that Primus hasn't fought since then, he's going to lose that spot because UFC guys stay busier and they fight tougher competition. Piccolotti, you know, he hasn't really taken off. He's 6-2, respectable, but it's only really him and Primus and maybe one or two of these other guys. But they just didn't stock the shelves like they promised he would. So my opinion is,
I don't
feel bad about bouncing
because it's kind of not their fault. But they did sign Benson, which I thought was great. Okay, and then Josh Thompson it didn't work, but they did do it. So I wouldn't say they did a horrible job trying to get him people. It just kind of didn't work out. But you're right. Maybe one more name to make it 3 at the time, I would have said, wow, they're really
and nothing since then.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's on them, right?
Yeah.
One of the hinging things it sounded like in Chandler's argument as well was the Paramount relationship. And I think that's the quiet sleeper in this. It's not just we're going to find out where Michael Chandler stands at the end of this negotiation. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a big tell, his negotiation, on where their relationship with Paramount stands. And that relationship with Paramount is really important because DAZN just got brought in, and we're seeing Paramount advertise more women's stuff and really not advertising, MMA stuff. In fact, if you look at their programming, Bellator's very out of place there. So much so that, not just other people in the media space are aware of this. We're hearing Coker himself acknowledge this in his interview, saying, "Oh, he's sweating a little bit as normal. Oh, we're doing great. Great relationships there. Great relationships there, right?" And that was something that Chandler was trying to figure out, because Chandler, of all the stable, he's the only guy smartly, to his credit, that's trying to push that with the country music connection. He's already established connections there, and you can tell
What's
that.
His connection?
I don't know, but it's something
he loves it.
And there's something that
that doesn't pay bills.
He's been at
that doesn't answer legacy.
He's gone to
The
whatever it is.
award show.
They paid him out.
He's done those. He did one with Eddie Alvarez. Remember?
You don't think the UFC could send him to an award show?
I don't know that they're just looking to do that.
I mean, they gave Gilbert Melendez one hell of a contract when he came over as the Strikeforce champ. Justin Gaethje's happy as a clam. Pettis and those other guys that came over in the WEC. I mean, they talk fondly about the WEC, but they always wanted to fight in the UFC. Who's the other guy we mentioned? Melendez, Gaethje. Eddie Alvarez. I mean, you saw his life completely changed. He had to move his family down to Florida at one point because things weren't working out, and he used to make comparable money to Chandler, but now he's got retired type of money because he rolled the dice on himself. So again, if Chandler really feels like he can beat Khabib, they're not going to make him fight that many fights. Right. Gaethje didn't have to fight that many fights before they gave him prominent roles. Gilbert didn't have to fight many fights before they gave him prominent roles. And Alvarez didn't have to fight very many fights, so it's just a matter of.
But that was right. But that was also 4 years ago. Which, even though 4 years ago is not that long ago, that was a complete different UFC. That's 3 different versions. Where WNIME, there's the prep where they're getting ready for the sale, and then there was the UFC as we knew. Gaethje was last year, but you're talking about Eddie Alvarez changing his life. And also, it's like, besides from UFC programming, and what are they really doing? You're getting a Toyo Tires. You're one of the 5 people they're going to choose for the Toyo Tires commercial, or one of the 3 people they're going to choose for the Metro piece, because those outside of UFC programming are really the biggest things they're offering. And so just to be a counter argument here, and further to that point is the UFC's also changed more. Where you're right, they've actually changed more with the WIMIE, where they should be able to be all these entertainment things. Remember, they're selling, you don't understand, all these properties, all these offices, we're getting rid of this, but you don't understand how much we're getting. I haven't really seen that. All we've really seen is WIME is this person who we owe a bill to. You know what I'm saying? I haven't seen them reaching over the table to give these guys opportunities. So that's why I make, even though it seems clear cut for the matchup wise, why Chandler should go to the UFC. I don't blame Chandler and these other guys for almost second guessing themselves by this new climate.
Here's the other thing: is I don't think they want him to be successful in the UFC. Why would they want somebody from another promotion to come in and capture their belt? It happened with Eddie because they didn't make it easy.
If he can become a star, then in the end, I think the fact that he's making them money will help them get over the ego thing. Because what's Bellator going to do? Send out one tweet and say, I told you our guys can bang. Boom, it survives for 5 minutes, and it's out of the hemisphere. But yet this guy's got himself a prime possession. An American guy, a good-looking guy, a wrestler that can throw, a wrestler that's got cardio, that he can feature in these big fights. He can send him to Shanghai, or he can put on pay-per-view. And so there's a lot really, really to gain from that.
I honestly think...
Why would they have given Eddie Alvarez...
I think they're petty. I'll give you my proof.
Justin Gaethje was a coach.
Henry Cejudo and Demetrius Johnson. Do you guys remember some other fighter in another organization also messed up his foot with that kick. They can't even say the word Bellator. They're very petty, dude. I think when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, but like I say, the ones that have come over have gotten shots within. I think Gilbert got a straight shot, if I'm not mistaken.
Different era though, way different era.
Yeah.
Gagey,
really
had he beaten Johnson, I mean, he would have been like what 17-0. I can't keep track what he would have been. He couldn't have been too far away from a title shot, though, if he would have beat Michael Johnson, because that's his proving test, you know, and that is under the Endeavor era. The other two, you guys are right, was under the Zuffa era. But I really feel like if you come up, I mean, even Dana's, he's more money consumed. He's talking about Ben Askren texted him and said, "Can we talk?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd love to have you." That tune changed, right?
Right.
Because I think he's noticing, wait a minute, we need stars and this guy can talk. But then he said, first you got to let me know that you're completely out of one championship. You know, Cyborg, same thing. They clashed heads and he didn't like her. And now, hey, we got the most feared woman on the planet. Did you see that? Everybody else is like, Ronda, you're the greatest. And she's like, you are the greatest, but I'm the most feared.
Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate, but that's a division that needed a star. Okay?
Yeah.
Women's needed a star. They don't need a star at 155 right now. They got a bunch of them. I'm not saying they won't support them. I just don't think they're going to make it easy. It's not going to be like any other Joe Schmo that came over. I think they will make it a little tough on them.
With a tough matchup?
Yeah.
I mean, that he has to get tough matchups because for one, they're paying him good money, and two, that's what gets you to the title shot is a tough contender. You got to get past the tough contender. So I wouldn't be shocked if it was a Kevin Lee, a Tony Ferguson. I mean, in fact, if you think about it, do we have to go?
Well, no, I was just looking at. Well, right now we're about that time. But
Danny, what's your cutoff?
I mean, a few more minutes. You got to go eventually.
What I'm saying is, you're right. Every matchup is going to be tough. But would you not agree, Conor McGregor? Those are tough guys he fought. But you don't think those were put in front of him in a certain order to help him? That's not going to happen for Michael Chandler. Is what I'm trying to say.
And it shouldn't, though. I don't think he's like he's not coming over with Conor where he's like, the light detector, like it just makes this big sharp thing. I think they know he's a former champ. He's got some skills, and now
he's a good guy.
You know what didn't help him was tough. Will Brooks. If Will Brooks was sitting there and he was fucking people up still in the UFC, so I bet you that's why they're like, you know what? If we sign him, great, and if we don't, we just move on.
Yeah.
Because the times we've signed free agents, it hasn't gone that great either, and some have worked out. So I think that's why they go, look, this is the number, you want it or not, and they don't worry about it if they don't get them. I don't think the fans put as much pressure as they used to. You got to get Crow Cup, or whatever. I think we're just, in that regard, in a different era, they just know that the next, a Sean O'Malley or someone like that will come out of the White Contender Series, and that'll solve that. But I still believe that what they're willing to do is roll the dice a little bit, pay him pretty good, and let's see how he does in that first fight. And if he just goes out there and does something great, and they'd probably give him Ferguson or Lee or someone while Conor and Khabib do this thing. And in fact, the more I think about it, they should say, we'll sign you now, but you got to fight on UFC 229 against Kevin Lee. He's looking for someone. Or Ferguson or whatever. Yeah. And then guess what? You can become a star in one night, man.
Yeah.
Just by smashing somebody.
No, the way you put it there, I side with you there. I'll be looking at storyline number 2 to regardless of which side Chandler goes. If he does go to the UFC, then that's going to tell me that we're going to see Paramount even move further from Bellator, because that seems like something that at least weighs enough for Chandler's mind to sway his decision. From that interview.
From Bellator, I just can't let him go. I really can't. But
they don't want to, and I'm sure they'll offer him other stuff. But Chandler does these interviews, and he's very careful about what he says. But the two things you can pretty much clip away at all the others, it just comes down to money, take care of his family, and legacy. Which one means more to him? If it's really legacy, then I think he has to go to the UFC. If it's really money and it's that much more, then I think you can go to, you have to stay with Bellator. But I will say this, guys. You can go to the UFC and solve the legacy issue, right? Knowing if you really are one of the best and still possibly get money. What you can't do at Bellator is both. You can only get the money. You're not going to be able to get the legacy. So I think if you are going to roll the dice, if you roll the dice here, I still feel like guess what? I don't think Bellator will feel betrayed, and if they do, then they're being petty because it goes, like I say, it's business, and I think they should say, hey, you gave it a shot, kid.
If you have confidence in yourself, you can get both.
Yeah. Hell, there's talk about, I think Coker was even warm to Eddie Alvarez coming back, and he left on acrimonious, terms or whatever. Anything can happen when it comes down to business. Anyway, thank you to Goes for booking today's show. I think Danny gets a fist bump on LaGreca.
Yeah.
Good job, Danny.
Did it fast, too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess he doesn't want to take any praise for that.
I don't know how to make any verbal sounds of fist bump.
Oh, well, when someone says thank you somewhere in New Jersey, isn't it followed by you're welcome? My pleasure.
No, I thought you.
I thought. You know what? You're a. I'm just kidding.
Danny gets a fist bump at least because I think and then it was it. There was no thank you. It was just.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Danny, for assisting with the Dave LaGreca interview, and Goes for lining up Gray Maynard.
You're welcome.
And Chris Lytle. Lytle seems like it was 3 hours ago. All right, I got to do tomorrow's show, and then Goes. We have a preview on Thursday, right? Joseph Benavides is co-hosting.
Benavides will be here as well.
And anything else down the pipeline?
I'll know today, but yeah, I think 2 other people.
2 other people. All right, so there you have it. Thank you all for tuning into the show. I think I wanted to say this on the way out. Somebody asked me here about Desmond Green, and it was Steve Sparks. I looked it up, and there still is no update as of now, other than 2 people were killed, somebody was in the hospital, a few others were injured, not as serious. I don't think Desmond Green is going to be fighting, but I really did look, and I just did not see an update to that. All the other stories out there are about an hour long. We better get out of here. The song's going to end. Go out there and be a champion.